Russia is burning, and Ukraine just reached a place nobody thought was possible. 1,500 kilometers. That is not a typo. That is the straight line distance from Ukrainian territory to the city of Perm, deep in the Ural Mountains, closer to Kazakhstan than to any front line, closer to Siberia than to any battlefield you have ever seen on a map. On the night of April 28th and April 29th, Ukrainian security service drones crossed that distance, penetrated Russia's air defense network, and struck the Perm linear production and dispatch station, a critical hub in Russia's main oil transport pipeline, owned by Transneft, the state-controlled energy giant. Early reports from Ukraine's security service said almost all oil storage tanks at the facility are on fire. Perm's own governor confirmed the strike. Russia's defense ministry admitted intercepting 98 Ukrainian drones across the country in a single night. 98 intercepted, and Perm still burned. If you follow this conflict and you want analysis that is updated every single day with verified facts and real numbers, hit subscribe now. What you are about to hear changes everything about how this war is being fought. Because Perm was not alone. On the same night, Ukrainian drones struck the Orsk Nefteyork Syntez refinery in the city of Orsk in Orenburg Oblast, one of Russia's largest refineries, processing approximately 6 million tons of oil per year. The mayor confirmed the strike. Residents were told not to go outside. 2 cities, one night. Both beyond the Ural Mountains, both more than 1,000 kilometers from Ukraine's border, both on fire before sunrise. And the night before that, Ukrainian drones struck the Tuapse oil refinery on Russia's Black Sea coast for the 3rd time in less than 2 weeks. 3 strikes on Tuapse in 12 days. Industry sources told Reuters the plant has been offline since an April 16th attack. The facility processes around 12 million metric tons of crude annually and serves as a critical export route for fuel oil and diesel. 3 strikes in 12 days, and it cannot operate. Putin dispatched his emergency situations minister directly to Tuapse to oversee firefighting. The Kremlin, which has said almost nothing publicly about the scale of the damage, sent its emergency minister to a city breathing toxic air from a refinery that Ukrainian drones have hit 3 times inside 2 weeks. Now, here is where this story gets complicated in a way most coverage is completely missing. And this is the part you need to stay with me for. The Institute for the Study of War made an analytical statement this week that connects 2 wars most people are treating as entirely separate. The Iran war closed the Strait of Hormuz. The Hormuz closure created global oil supply restrictions. Those restrictions pushed Brent crude above $111 per barrel. Russia, which exports oil through Black Sea terminals and through pipelines across Europe and Asia, benefits from that price spike in direct proportion to how much oil it can actually move. And then, critically, the Trump administration issued a sanctions waiver on certain Russian oil transactions while negotiating on Ukraine. The combination of the Iran war's oil price surge and the Trump sanctions waiver was creating a financial windfall for Moscow that nobody voted for and nobody planned. Ukraine cannot close the Strait of Hormuz. Ukraine cannot reverse a presidential sanctions waiver. Ukraine can strike the physical infrastructure through which Russia moves the oil that turns that windfall into military funding. Perm, Orsk, Tuapse. 3 facilities, 2 nights. 1 documented strategic objective: deny Russia the financial benefit it is receiving from a war Ukraine had absolutely no role in starting. If you want to understand why these strikes matter beyond the headlines, share this with someone who thinks this conflict is frozen. Because the numbers tell a completely different story. Russia deployed 8,496 kamikaze drones against Ukraine in the same 24-hour period that Ukraine struck Perm, Orsk, and followed up on Tuapse. 8,496. Ukraine's air defense forces neutralized 154 out of 171 drones targeting Ukrainian territory overnight, a 90% intercept rate. Russia claims it intercepted 98 Ukrainian drones. But the Perm facility burned. The Orsk refinery burned. The Tuapse fire continued. The drones that got through reached the Ural Mountains. Both sides are running air defense systems at maximum sustained pressure from drone campaigns neither side can fully stop. Both sides are burning. The Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, accused Ukraine of, quote, exacerbating the global oil crisis with its attacks on oil export infrastructure. Let that sit for a moment. The same Kremlin receiving a financial windfall from the Iran war's oil price spike. The same Kremlin whose emergency minister is in Tuapse, overseeing a firefighting operation at a refinery burning because of Ukrainian strikes. Peskov is accusing Ukraine of exacerbating a crisis that Russia is profiting from and that Ukraine is methodically trying to prevent Russia from profiting from. Secondary consequences from the Tuapse strikes alone now include toxic rain falling on a Russian city, halted oil exports from a top 10 refinery, and dozens of anchored tankers in the Black Sea posing a documented threat to undersea communications cables, all from 3 drone strikes in 12 days. Here is the number that reframes the entire war. 1,328,820 Russian military personnel lost since February 24th, 2022, according to Ukraine's general staff. The war that the Kremlin expected to last 72 hours is now in its 1,526th day. And Russia is expanding mobilization, more soldiers, because it needs them. While simultaneously, Ukraine is striking oil infrastructure 1,500 kilometers away and building defensive fortifications in the north. Trump's peace process has produced no ceasefire in 5 months of active mediation. The territorial question remains the specific and consistent obstacle. Russia controls approximately 20% of Ukrainian territory and demands legal recognition of that control as a precondition for any agreement. Ukraine and its European allies say that recognition is not a negotiating position. It is capitulation that would simply delay a resumed Russian offensive after any ceasefire expires. Every Russian oil facility that Ukraine destroys before any ceasefire is leverage at that table. Every ton of oil that Russia cannot export is revenue Russia cannot use to fund the occupation that Trump's framework might allow it to keep. The strikes on Perm, Orsk, and Tuapse are not separate from the peace process. They are Ukraine's contribution to it. Major General Yevgeny Komardin, head of the SSU, briefed President Zelenskyy on the Perm operation and described it with 2 words: our long-range sanctions. Not terrorism, not retaliation, sanctions. The United States imposes financial sanctions on Russia. Trump waived some of those sanctions. Ukraine cannot reverse that decision. But Ukraine can impose its own sanctions through precision strikes on the exact economic infrastructure that financial sanctions were designed to target. The Transneft hub in Perm is Ukraine's long-range sanction against the energy revenue that American financial sanctions partially exempted, and that the Iran war's oil price spike has made more valuable than at any point since the invasion began. Zelenskyy said Ukraine is expanding the range of its long-distance strikes. His words were deliberate, not incremental escalation, a new phase. The phase in which Ukrainian drones reach the Ural Mountains is a phase Russia's military planners were told would never exist. The geographic safety that Russia assumed protected its economic interior no longer exists. 1,500 kilometers, the Ural Mountains. The assumption is gone. 3 questions. Leave your analysis in the comments. Every response is read, and the sharpest breakdown gets featured. First, Ukraine struck the Transneft hub in Perm at 1,500 kilometers, the Orsk refinery at comparable range, and Tuapse for the third time in 12 days. Brent crude is at $111. Trump waived Russia oil sanctions. Russia's emergency minister is in Tuapse. If Ukraine can reach 1,500 kilometers, what Russian economic infrastructure exists beyond current drone range? And what happens to Putin's war funding calculation if Ukraine extends another 500 kilometers into Siberian oil fields? Second, Russia deployed over 8,000 kamikaze drones against Ukraine in 24 hours. Ukraine struck 3 Russian oil facilities in the same period. Russia is expanding mobilization. Ukraine is building northern fortifications. Trump's peace process has produced no ceasefire in 5 months. If both sides can sustain mass drone campaigns against each other's economic infrastructure indefinitely, what is the specific event? Ukrainian economic exhaustion, Russian personnel exhaustion, or a Trump ultimatum neither side can refuse that finally forces one side to accept territorial terms? Third, Ukraine's security service called the Perm strike their long-range sanctions against Russia's oil revenue. Trump waived financial sanctions. The Iran war raised oil above $100. Russia benefits from every dollar above the price cap. The Tuapse refinery is offline. If Ukraine's drone campaign destroys Russian export capacity faster than Russia can repair it, but Brent crude stays above $100 because Hormuz remains closed, does reduced export volume plus elevated price net out to the same Russian revenue as full capacity at lower prices? Does Ukraine's campaign actually reduce Putin's war funding, or does it simply redirect it through undamaged pipelines? We verify every fact, every source is confirmed, every number is documented. We update this analysis every single day because in this conflict, 24 hours changes everything. If you are not subscribed yet, now is the time. Tap the button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next development.